Process understanding is the first element necessary in beginning to determine how and where to optimize operations. The process we're tracking here is an insurance claims workflow, specifically in the property and casualty space. And once we understand how the claims process flows, where bottlenecks occur, and where time is lost, we can begin to focus our efforts to re-engineer steps, retrain knowledge workers, or implement new technology in order to increase throughput and overall productivity. Now, the directive from management is to find a way to cut down claim closeout times by 10%, and the core task will be to identify specific process improvement areas which will significantly reduce time and incur costs. So we'll start by visualizing our claims process flow using the Schema module. The goal here is to provide an understanding of what the dominant process path looks like and where we may be experiencing long wait times and possible work queue backups and bottlenecks. So I'll start by initializing a brand new schema, and we'll allow the tool to take what it believes to be the most important milestone events. Here are all the different possible events that could have occurred as a part of my claims workflow. And this is all taken by introspecting a data file that supports my process. So we'll run some analysis and specifically choose those events that are most commonly and reliably occurring at the same point in this process. And it looks like it picked out 10 events as our milestones, which is great, but we can always customize this. So if I want to add a few more to the model, for example, where claims are being denied, maybe where we're preparing estimates, and where we're running fraud checks. I've added a few more and I'll have it generate that schema for us. So this is showing us that most common schema based on the milestone events that I essentially said that I care about. Now when I choose to save this, this now becomes a monitoring tool. So you can see via the thickness of the lines where more claims have taken one transition or path versus another, or if we don't want to look at it by the volume of claims, but by the amount of time spent in any one area of the process, I change the metric. Now the line thickness represents what's our average duration to go from one part of the process to the next. So where are we spending the bulk of our time as a part of this claims process, where we may want to start to focus. Now the last thing to point to here is the ability to animate this. Now when I turn this on, each circle represents a claim or a group of claims, and we visualize as they go through the process where they may start to slow down. As they bunch up and back up in certain places, they're actually creating bottlenecks, right? Non-efficient areas of the process. And as you can see them changing color, these are claims that have aged. They've been in the process for a longer period of time. Now, if at any moment I want to drill in on a single claim, I can select, for example, one of these that are lagging behind and get very detailed information on exactly what happened with any one of these given claims. So you can see how we can already start to uncover what our process looks like and where we may want to start to digging in and asking further questions about how we can optimize this process. Next, we'll transition into the path analysis module, which will highlight the variability in regards to how these claims are being processed. So what you see here is a frequency distribution of all the different possible process paths, with most commonly followed path or execution steps here to the left. So we've got along the top the number of timelines or claims that have executed one sequence of steps versus another, and on down the line relative to the events listed here along the left. So our quote-unquote straight-through process is our most common flow. However, it's only happening 5.4% of the time roughly. And as you scroll to the right here, you can see many different areas where we've skipped steps, gone back to complete steps, possibly been pinballing back and forth between certain events or activities. And these non-efficient workflows can really stand out more and more in obscure behaviors as you scroll to the right. So from a compliance perspective, ensuring that we've done everything we expect to be done, also in the expected order, this would be very interesting. Not only that, but from a timing efficiency, we can compare sequences of steps here based on how long it's taken us to process a claim one way versus another. Okay, we can see that average duration for each given series of steps. Now we can also visualize this differently, more in that schema type of a model to represent branching and loopbacks if we want to visualize this analysis a different way. Okay. The last thing to point to is the ability to analyze this based on the average cost. So, how costly is it to us as an organization when we process claims one sequence of steps versus another? And starting to understand where we're losing money in certain behavioral instances. And in this case, there are a few specific paths that stand out. And if we'd like to, we can then select in on specifically these paths, apply them as a filter, and now when I'm looking at my timelines view, I'm looking at just those timelines or claims that have exhibited these high cost behaviors. And there are a number of different analysis modules that we can use to point us in the direction of where, when, why, how can we start to weed out these issues that are occurring within our claims workflow that are incurring this cost leakage. And so now that we've honed in on a specific area, we know this issue is occurring, we want to bring in our breakdown analysis and start to analyze how does these high cost claims break down by state, the state that they're submitted in. Well, it's a relatively even distribution. However, when we look at it by the agent responsible for processing the claims, it's a bit more compelling because we have a couple of agents and one specifically that stands out as being responsible for a large chunk of these high cost claims relative to their peers. So this demonstrates the ability to uncover where cost is being incurred and to not only show me that I have an issue, but point me in the direction of how can I go off and fix it. Maybe it's going and having a conversation with this employee. Maybe it's fine tuning a piece of technology. Whatever it is that's looking to make me fine tune and further optimize my claims operations.